What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video for the First Descendant today, we're going to be looking at Voltia, which is the new ultimate beam rifle that comes with the battle pass in season 2. Now truth be told, if you've been a fan of the channel for a while, I'm sure you would have come across my comments about beam rifles and how much I hate them in this game. And it's simply because they're not fun for me to use and I kind of like enjoy the other weapons more. But the reality of the fact is, those of us that have played season 2 for a while now already, and I mean it only came out yesterday, but if you know, you know, and you've ventured into the Void Vessel, especially on hard difficulty, or you've been doing hard mode special ops, will know that these new shield minions can be a bitch. So they come in two different flavors. There's a shield that blocks skills, which means you need to crack the shield first with a skill before you can deal damage to the juicy enemy inside. Or there are shields which need to be cracked with a gun first before you can deal damage to the meaty morsels inside. Now, this is where Voltia comes in because it literally excels at doing this, and it can break these shields almost instantly while also chaining onto the enemies around them, dealing damage to them as well. So it becomes just a very, very easy weapon to use in situations where you are doing Void Vessel, where you are using, going up against these shield kind of enemies. And that is primarily the reason why I started building it out. Now, lo and behold, after building it out, it actually performs pretty well just with whatever you kind of like put in front of it, whether it's mobbing or dealing damage to tougher enemies. And it becomes a really, really good companion piece for doing the aforementioned content. So first things first, I think we should just go ahead and talk about the unique ability quickly. And I do want to mention the fact that currently I only have a 1 out of 4. Wait, do I have a 2? I think I've got a 1 out of 4 Voltia, which means I need 3 more copies to get the 4 out of 4. Now, why is this important? Because this actually drastically increases the damage that you deal to shields. Pretty much how Voltia works is basically when you shoot it, it creates something called chain current, which is the chain lightning effect of the damage onto the enemies. But what this does is also if it goes onto these void shields. So arc barriers is the one that blocks abilities or skills, and anti-void shields I think are the ones that block bullets, or it could be the other way around. Fuck it, I don't know, whatever. But the point is, it actually ups your firearm damage significantly against those shields, and that's why Voltia tears through the shield so easily compared to other weapons. Let it be known that you don't have to use Voltia to crack bullet shields on enemies, but it does it really well because it's kind of like its fucking job. So know that whatever you're seeing in terms of footage in this video and everything like that, it will only get better at doing its job as we add more of these in. Of course, I need to progress through the battle pass to get the requisite amount of Voltias to basically throw it in. Now let me quickly run you through the build itself. So setting it up, first things first, beam rifles are kind of weird. They have a short-ish distance that the beam goes, but in testing, or at the very least from the outset of looking at it, it seems like Voltia's beam is longer. I don't fucking know why. It could just be because I actually like this beam rifle versus the other beam rifles, that I could just be imagining it. I didn't bother to test it. It just feels longer, and I don't want to burst the bubble for myself and ruin my dreams of it actually being the best beam rifle in the game right now. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. But the bottom line is, we're gonna start out building this pretty much the same way that we start out building every single weapon in this game. So we start with action and reaction, and we get ourselves a fire rate up. Now you might be saying to yourself, why the fuck would you put fire rate up on a beam rifle? Well, the thing is, it has a fire rate just like every other gun in the game. And if you put fire rate up in, it means that it actually, basically pushes the pulses of the damage that it deals with the beam rifle faster. So it is actually dealing its damage faster. So it's not just like a case of like artificially boosting up the DPS or something like that. It actually does increase the damage. So that's good. Next, we want to put in the final piece of I would say the Holy Trinity. So we got action, reaction, fire rate up, and rifling reinforcement. At this point, we need to address one of the weak points of the weapon, and that is that it has a really long reload time, 2.5 seconds. That's simply too long, especially if you're trying to do mobbing based content where you have to reload and switch fast and things like that. So we're going to need to do something about that. Now, the easiest way to do that is actually a blue mod called Recycling Genius, I believe. There she is, and this gives you a 30% reload benefit. So now we drop down to a 1.75 seconds. Now in testing 1.75 seconds, that still did not feel good enough for me. It is one of the reasons why I don't like beam rifles, is because for some reason they all have these really high reload modifiers. So in this case, we're gonna slap on another mod for this. So we're gonna go with something called Reload Expert. All right, now Reload Expert is another 25% faster reload, and it also gives us 1% of firearm attack. So whoop-de-doo. This means we end up at a 1.12 seconds reload time, which is super snappy. That's what you're seeing in the footage that you've seen so far. So that's a really, really good fast reload. I love it. And ever since I made this change, the gun just felt a lot better for me. Now we need to also look at magazine size, because the point is this has 42 in the magazine straight off the rip, right? So we want to get that a little bit better. So again, we have a mod called Expand Weapon Charge, which we can use. This blue mod gives us 50% basically more rounds per magazine. And then I like to throw in another magazine mod here, which is Compulsive Magazine. Now what this does is it gives us another 39%, but it actually reduces our weak point damage by 10%, which in this the grand scheme of things, we're not building this weapon to weak point, and so therefore it's not that big a deal for me. Now you can see we end up at 78 bullets in the magazine, or cells, or energy, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, because it's a beam rifle. We have that in, so that means you have a lot more beam for you to use. Now at this point in time, you might be wondering, hold up, you have decided to build this weapon by not going into weak point and not going into crit. That is correct. So this weapon has a fairly large crit multiplier of 15%. That's base, and it that's the crit hit rate, and then its critical hit damage multiplier is 1.5. That's not bad. That's not bad. It's a really strong foundation to start from. It's not the highest that we get in these weapons, but in my building originally, I made this into a crit weapon, and it did not perform as well as just the standard full damage mode, which is what I'm doing right now. So know that you can, if you want to experiment with crit, you can do it. It has a fairly strong basis for it, but in this case, I decided to opt not for that. Now, at this point in time, I like to add an element to it. My element of choice usually, I don't know why, but it just kind of ends up being that way, is fire. But in this particular case, it works out because we're going to stack it with another mod, which works really well. So this gives us an additional 30% of fire attack on top of our damage. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pair that with one of the new mods which we get in the game now since Season 2 launched, which is Heat Circulation. And what this does is it says upon inflicting a burn effect, in other words, when you shoot them with this and they get set on fire, it increases your fire attack, so this elemental attack, by basically 90% for 5 seconds, and it has a 20-second cooldown. Now, this is the mod combination that means that this weapon is not just good at mobbing, but if you have to drill down on a really tough enemy, a strong yellow bar or something like a boss, then this helps you to deal enough damage that it is actually quite significant, and it's not just a mobbing tool. Now, lastly, we combine it with one other really good mod that also helps us with this idea of just pushing a lot of damage into a tough target, and that is Sharp Precision Shot. A Sharp Precision Shot, when you hold in your trigger, which you do in any case with beam rifles, because that's how you deal damage with them, you want them to spin through the 3 stages of damage, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So when you pull the trigger originally, your fire rate is lower, but as you keep holding it in, your fire rate goes up, your recoil goes down, so now you have a much steadier beam, and your firearm attack ticks up. Now this, in combination with the firearm attack increases that we see when we shoot against shields and stuff like that, is why this deals so much damage. It's beautiful. So this all in all together is a really, really strong package for me for Voltia, and I've pretty much stopped using other weapons in Void Vessel and in hard special ops because it's just that good and it's just that efficient at dealing with tough enemies and opening them up for me so that I can use my skills against them, which is kind of really, really dope. Now, last thing before I let you go, let's quickly just talk about substats on the weapon. So, of course, you'll take firearm attack. That's by default always a good one. Now, I didn't stack for crit or crit damage on this weapon. But the honest truth is there isn't really anything else that's worth picking up. I prefer crit damage and crit hit rate over something like weak point at this point in time. But what was good to pick up was rounds per magazine. So I would say firearm attack and rounds per magazine is really good here. Maybe roll fire onto this as well as the mods that you have on there, which just increases that fire attack even more. But in this case, I've got firearm critical hit rate and critical hit damage on here, which are sub tier for me right now because I didn't build for it. But in the end, it's still better than having like a dead roll on it per se. Now, I do also just want to show then with the rounds per magazine on there, we get to a nice comfortable 83 rounds per magazine, which is really, really nice on this. And it means that you can hold this beam in for a super long time, which means you get sharp precision shot going, and you just, if an enemy is tough, you are going to fucking laser them into the ground. And that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. I hope you enjoy your laser rifle. And as always, fucking cheers.